with a hesitant signature on unexpected inheritance papers and a 3-day weekend commitment to clear out her estranged uncle's remote gas station, Maya Collins unknowingly stepped into a decades-old government conspiracy that would shatter everything she believed about her family history. For beneath the dilapidated service station's rusted storage tanks lay classified documents the Pentagon had been desperately searching for since the Cold War ended nuclear protocols that could trigger international panic if they fell into the wrong hands. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The relentless desert wind whipped sand against the windshield as Maya Collins navigated her weathered sedan along Highway 15, a desolate stretch of asphalt cutting through the Nevada badlands. Faded yellow lines and sun-bleached warning signs were the only indicators that civilization existed beyond this forgotten corner of the American Southwest. Maya hadn't expected to inherit a gas station. Her life as a single mother in Phoenix was meticulously organized around her nursing job, her small apartment, and her 10-year-old daughter Zoe's school schedule. The call from the attorney 4 days ago had been completely unexpected. Your Uncle Frank Collins has passed away. Despite your complicated relationship, he's left you his property, the Horizon gas station, and adjoining land. It needs to be cleared out and prepared for potential sale. The complicated relationship was lawyer speak for a 15-year estrangement. Maya's mother had cut ties with her brother Frank when Maya was just a teenager, taking her away from the desert outpost where she'd spent childhood summers, pumping gas for tourists and stargazing on the station's flat roof. The reasons had never been fully explained, just vague references to dangerous ideologies and her mother's stern warning that some secrets should stay buried. Now at 32, with Zoe safely spending the weekend at her father's, Maya was expected to deal with an abandoned gas station, to clear it out and prepare it for sale, according to the attorney. A weekend task that would close the final chapter on a family history she barely understood. The Horizon gas station appeared through the shimmer of heat waves as Maya rounded the final bend. A single-story structure with fading blue paint and a collapsed awning over long-defunct pumps. In her childhood memories, it had seemed like an adventure, a place where travelers shared stories from across the country. Now it just looked derelict and forgotten, a relic from another era before interstate highways redirected the flow of traffic. Maya parked her car beside the shuttered service garage and made a dash through the scorching heat to the main building. The metal door was hot to the touch as she fumbled with the old brass key. The lock finally surrendered with a reluctant click, and the door swung open with a haunting creak. The musty scent of abandonment greeted her: dust, old paper, motor oil, and something else she couldn't quite place. Maya fumbled for a light switch, surprised when the fluorescent fixtures actually flickered to life. The attorney had mentioned that minimal utilities had been maintained, but she'd been skeptical given the property's remote location. The interior was like stepping into a time capsule from another decade. Shelves still stocked with faded snack packages and dusty motor oil bottles, a counter with an ancient cash register, yellowed maps and local attraction brochures. Everything layered with dust but otherwise untouched, as if her uncle had simply stepped out for a moment, rather than passed away after years in a veterans hospital. "One weekend isn't going to cut it," she muttered, running a finger along a dusty shelf. The rational choice would be to call the attorney immediately, explain this was far more than she'd agreed to handle, hire someone to clear the place out, and never look back. Yet something held her there. Perhaps curiosity about the uncle she barely remembered, or the nagging questions about why her family had severed ties so completely. As the desert sun began its descent, painting the landscape in fiery oranges and deep purples, Maya settled in for the night. She found clean linens in a storage closet and made up the small cot in the back room, avoiding her uncle's personal quarters with its belongings and paperwork. After a simple dinner from the supplies she'd brought, Maya returned to the main office, drawn to the metal desk covered with papers. Perhaps some answers lay in her uncle's records. Most documents were mundane utility bills, inventory lists, supplier catalogs. But as she sorted through them, Maya found a leather-bound journal wedged beneath a stack of auto parts catalogs. The book was worn, its pages yellowed with age. Opening it, she recognized her uncle's handwriting, the same precise block letters from the birthday cards he'd sent before the estrangement. The journal entries dated back 25 years, chronicling the gas station's operations, but occasionally veering into personal territory. Maya flipped forward, looking for entries around the time her family had left. There was a gap several months with no entries, and then a single page with just one line. They're watching the station. They know I haven't destroyed it. Destroyed what? She flipped through more pages, finding increasingly paranoid entries about them watching the property, monitoring his mail, following his suppliers. It painted a picture of a man descending into delusion, perhaps explaining why her mother had distanced them. As she closed the journal, her elbow knocked a faded photograph from the desk. Bending to retrieve it, Maya noticed something odd about the linoleum floor where the frame had landed. One section seemed slightly different from the others, the pattern inconsistent, the edges more precisely cut. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Heart suddenly racing, Maya pressed her fingers against it and felt a slight give. She applied more pressure to one end of the section, and it pivoted upward, revealing a small hollow space beneath the floor. Inside was a key unlike any modern one she'd seen, large, made of brass, with an intricate pattern on its bow and a complex bit at the end, the kind of key that opened something old and significant. Maya held it up to the fluorescent light. There was no indication of what it might unlock, but its careful concealment suggested importance. She ran her thumb over the ornate engravings, a series of numbers and symbols that looked vaguely military to her trained eye, but nothing she could immediately identify. Outside, the desert night had fallen completely, stars emerging in brilliant clarity against the inky blackness. In the distance, a pair of headlights appeared on the highway, slowing as they approached the station before accelerating again and continuing past. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the desert's rapid temperature drop after sundown. She returned her attention to the key, wondering what lock it might fit. The gas station had standard door locks, nothing that would require such an elaborate key. Perhaps the service garage or some old storage container she hadn't yet discovered. Maya slipped the key into her pocket and continued searching the office. In a drawer beneath stacks of old receipts, she found a small leather-bound book different from the journal, more like a ledger. Inside were columns of numbers and coordinates, dates stretching back decades. Some entries were circled in red, others crossed out entirely. At the back of the ledger was a hand-drawn map of the gas station property, with several areas marked with the same symbols that appeared on the key. One location was circled repeatedly, a spot behind the service garage labeled only with the letters Saint. Beside it, her uncle had written, "The truth stays sealed but never forgotten." A chill ran down Maya's spine. Whatever her uncle had been involved in, it wasn't the ramblings of a paranoid old man. The meticulous records, the hidden key, the coded map, these were the actions of someone deliberately concealing something of great importance. "What were you hiding, Uncle Frank?" she whispered to the empty room. The answer would come soon. Enough in the form of a sealed underground tank, a hidden terminal, and classified documents that would not only explain her family's sudden departure 15 years ago, but would put Maya directly in the crosshairs of government agencies who thought the secrets had died with Frank Collins. Morning arrived with harsh sunlight streaming through dusty windows. Maya had slept fitfully, her dreams filled with shadowy figures and endless corridors leading nowhere. The key she'd discovered lay on the small table beside her cot, its brass surface catching the light. After a quick breakfast of granola bars and bottled water, Maya studied the hand-drawn map from her uncle's ledger again. The circled location behind the garage labeled Saint seemed the most logical place to start. Perhaps whatever this key unlocked was hidden there. The desert heat had already begun to build as Maya made her way across the cracked concrete toward the service garage. The structure leaned slightly to one side, its metal siding warped from decades of extreme temperatures. Like the main building, it seemed frozen in time, a relic of a bygone era when independent gas stations dotted America's highways. Maya pulled open the heavy sliding door, which protested with a groan of rusted metal. Inside, shafts of sunlight cut through gaps in the roof, illuminating dancing dust motes. Auto equipment sat abandoned, a hydraulic lift, tool cabinets, parts shelves, everything covered in a thick layer of dust and cobwebs. She consulted the map again, orienting herself according to the markings. Saint should be located at the rear of the garage, near the northwest corner. Maya picked her way carefully through the cluttered space, mindful of rusted tools and uneven flooring. The back wall of the garage was lined with storage cabinets, most empty save for forgotten tools and supplies. The northwest corner, however, contained something different, a large metal trapdoor built into the concrete floor. It seemed ordinary enough, the kind used to access underground storage tanks at gas stations. But according to the map, this was the spot. Maya examined the trapdoor carefully. It was secured with a heavy padlock, not unusual for a gas station storage tank. What was unusual, however, was the lock itself, old and ornate, nothing like the standard commercial locks used for such purposes. "This has to be it," she muttered, retrieving the brass key from her pocket. It fit perfectly into the padlock, turning with a satisfying click. The heavy lock fell open in her hand. Using all her strength, Maya lifted the metal trapdoor. It was heavier than she expected, clearly not designed for easy access. As it swung upward and over, it revealed not the expected fuel storage tank, but a narrow metal ladder descending into darkness. Retrieving her phone, Maya switched on its flashlight and shined it into the opening. The beam revealed a cylindrical chamber extending perhaps 15 feet down, its walls lined with metal. At the bottom was not an oil tank, but what appeared to be a small room. Common sense told her to retreat, to call the attorney, the local authorities, anyone before venturing into an unknown underground space on an abandoned property. But curiosity pulled stronger. This hidden chamber might hold answers about her uncle, about the family rift that had shaped her life. Taking a deep breath, Maya began descending the metal ladder, testing each rung carefully before putting her full weight on it. The air grew cooler as she went, carrying a sterile scent. Unlike the musty garage above, more like a climate-controlled office. At the bottom of the ladder, Maya found herself in a circular chamber, perhaps 12 feet in diameter. This was no storage tank. The walls were lined with metal shelving containing document boxes, electronic equipment, and what appeared to be communication devices from another era. A small desk with an old computer terminal stood in the center. This was a bunker, a secure room deliberately constructed and carefully maintained. Battery-powered emergency lights were mounted on the walls, and when Maya pressed a switch, they surprisingly flickered to life, casting the room in a pale blue glow. What she saw made her breath catch. The room was an archive, a collection of government documents, technical manuals, and microfilm reels. Each shelf was meticulously labeled with dates and code names. In one corner stood a locked cabinet with a strange electronic mechanism, not a standard key lock, but something requiring a numerical code. On the desk was a yellowed envelope addressed simply, "For family, open only in emergency." The handwriting was her uncle's. With trembling fingers, Maya opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper containing a typed message. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and you found what I've protected for 27 years. In 1987, I was a communications specialist at Nevada test site, clearance level Sigma 16. During the final days of test series Musketeer, I witnessed the unauthorized removal of nuclear emergency response protocols, fail-safe codes meant to prevent accidental launches. These weren't just any protocols, they were the master contingency plans, the ones that could override all others in case of system compromise. The official responsible was General Warren Lambert, then Deputy Director of Strategic Command. His motives weren't treason but insurance leverage against rivals in the Pentagon. When he died unexpectedly in 1988, the protocols were never recovered. They're considered the most dangerous missing documents in DoD history, capable of bypassing safeguards if they fell into hostile hands. I discovered them by accident during inventory. Instead of returning them, I kept them sealed here. My mistake was telling your mother. She contacted authorities, but Lambert's allies in government threatened our family. She chose to protect you by leaving, cutting all ties to me. The documents in the sealed case contain verification codes that expire in 2026. After that, they become harmless. My plan was to wait it out. If you've found this before then, you have choices to make. The combination to the secure cabinet is your birth date. I'm sorry for the burden I've placed on you. Not all secrets deserve to be kept. Not all deserve to be told. Choose wisely. Frank. Maya stared at the letter, reading it twice more, trying to process its implications. Her uncle hadn't been paranoid, he'd been hiding actual classified nuclear protocols, documents so sensitive their disappearance had been covered up rather than acknowledged publicly. This explained everything: her mother's sudden departure, the family estrangement, her uncle's isolation. He hadn't been a conspiracy theorist. He'd been at the center of a real government conspiracy. With shaking hands, Maya approached the secure cabinet. The electronic lock had a simple keypad, primitive by modern standards, but advanced for its time. She entered her birth date, the 12th of July 1993, and heard a soft click as the mechanism disengaged. Inside the cabinet was a single metal case, sealed with official government warnings about unauthorized access being punishable under national security statutes. A final warning label read, "Critical protocol documents, Sigma clearance required." The realization of what she'd discovered hit Maya with physical force. She was standing in a hidden bunker containing classified nuclear documents that had been missing for decades, documents that, according to her uncle, could potentially bypass nuclear safeguards if misused. As she contemplated her next move, a sound from above made her freeze, the unmistakable crunch of tires on gravel. Someone had pulled into the gas station's lot. Maya quickly switched off the emergency lights, plunging the bunker into darkness. Save for her phone's flashlight, she listened intently to the movements above. Car doors opening and closing. Multiple sets of footsteps moving with purpose across the concrete toward the garage. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain it would give her away. Had someone followed her? Had the property been under surveillance since her arrival? "Ms. Collins," called a man's voice, smooth and authoritative. "I know you're down there. I think it's time we discussed your uncle's unfortunate hobby of collecting government property." Government. It had to be. But how had they known about the hidden bunker? How had they known she was here? The answer hit her with chilling clarity. They'd been watching the property, probably for years, waiting for someone to discover Frank Collins' secret cache of documents. "The situation is quite secure, Miss Collins," the voice continued, "and we're prepared to be exceptionally generous in ensuring it remains classified. Your uncle refused such an arrangement, which made things unnecessarily complicated for everyone." Maya's mind raced through options. There appeared to be no other exit from the underground chamber. The man above knew she was here. If he represented the government, he had resources, influence, and based on what she just learned, potentially a willingness to eliminate problems permanently. But she had something her uncle hadn't. She'd taken photos of the letter, the bunker, and the sealed case with her phone. The evidence was already digitized. "Mr. Lambert," she called out, making an educated guess based on her uncle's letter. "I think you should know that everything my uncle documented is already backed up. If anything happens to me, it all goes public immediately." The silence that followed was profound. Then the voice, noticeably less composed, "Come upstairs so we can discuss this civilly. Like you discussed things with my uncle, with my mother?" Maya countered, buying time as she searched for anything else useful in the hidden bunker. Her hand closed around something cold and metallic beneath a stack of papers, a service pistol, loaded and maintained. "Those were unfortunate misunderstandings," the voice replied, an edge of tension now evident. "Ancient history that no one would believe without proof." "I have proof," Maya said, moving toward the metal ladder with the pistol concealed in her jacket pocket. "More than my uncle ever showed you." She was bluffing, partially, but something in the silence that followed told her the bluff was working. Whoever was up there, Lambert or someone working for whatever government faction had covered up the missing protocols, was recalculating their approach. Maya Collins had come to the Horizon gas station to clear out an old building and close a chapter of family history. Instead, she had stumbled into a decades-long government cover-up, one that had torn her family apart and forced her uncle into isolation. And now, as she prepared to confront the man above, she realized that her inheritance wasn't just a dilapidated gas station, it was her uncle's legacy, a carefully preserved secret that powerful people had gone to great lengths to keep buried. "I'm coming up," she called, gripping the pistol tightly. "And I think you'll want to hear my terms." The hidden bunker had changed everything. The question now was whether Maya would live long enough to use what she'd found. "Is everything all right?" "Perfectly fine, Jason," Lambert responded, his eyes never leaving Maya's. "Just having a chat with Frank Collins' niece about her inheritance." Martin tugged urgently at Maya's arm. "Now, while we have the chance." The three of them moved quickly to the trapdoor. Maya slipped through first, followed by Rebecca, with Martin bringing up the rear, just as a younger man, presumably Jason Lambert, entered the garage. "What's going on?" they heard him demand as Martin pulled the trapdoor closed behind them. In the darkness of the underground bunker, Martin led them to the far wall where a narrow passage Maya hadn't noticed earlier stretched into darkness. "This way," the older man whispered, "and hurry. They know about this place now. It won't be safe for long." As they navigated the claustrophobic tunnel, Rebecca explained in hushed tones how Frank Collins had contacted her 3 years earlier, sharing some of his evidence about the missing nuclear protocols. The investigation had been proceeding slowly, hampered by classified roadblocks, until Frank's sudden decline and placement in a VA hospital. "Your uncle wasn't suffering from PTSD," Rebecca assured Maya. "Lambert arranged for his diagnosis after he threatened to go public. By the time I realized what had happened, he was heavily medicated and under constant supervision in a facility their family practically funds through their defense contracts. He knew they might come after him," Martin added. "That's why he created the hidden passage, why he maintained the bunker so meticulously. He was preparing for a confrontation that finally came." The tunnel eventually opened into a large drainage culvert behind the gas station, just as Martin had promised. They emerged cautiously, checking for signs of Jason Lambert or anyone else watching the property. "My car's down the road," Martin said. "We parked away from the gas station in case the Lamberts were monitoring it." As they hurried across the scrubland behind the gas station, Maya looked back at the horizon, the place that had featured in her childhood memories, that had claimed her uncle's freedom, that had driven her mother to years of fearful hiding, and that had finally brought everything full circle with her return. "What happens now?" she asked as they reached Martin's car, hidden behind a stand of desert shrubs. Rebecca carefully stored her digital recorder in a secure case. Now we take your uncle's evidence to people who can use it. Senate Intelligence Committee, independent prosecutors, news outlets beyond the Lamberts' influence. It won't be easy, Martin cautioned, starting the engine. The Lamberts won't go down without a fight. They have resources, connections, and they've already shown they're willing to go to extreme lengths to protect themselves. Maya clutched the document she'd taken from the bunker, thinking of her uncle spending decades building his case in isolation, of her mother fleeing in the night, of the years of separation and misunderstanding. They've gotten away with it for 30 years, she said, determination hardening her voice. That ends now. As Martin's car pulled away from the Horizon gas station, Maya Collins understood that the inheritance that had seemed like a burden just 24 hours ago was actually a sacred trust. Her uncle had left her more than a dilapidated gas station. He had left her the truth, and with it, the responsibility to finally bring justice to those who had thought themselves above it. Behind them, Daniel Lambert watched the departing car. From the garage doorway, his son Jason beside him. They have everything, don't they? Jason asked, tension evident in his voice. Daniel's expression remained impassive. They have what Frank Collins collected. But they don't know the full story. Not yet. What do we do? The elder Lambert turned to his son, his face hardening. What this family has always done, whatever is necessary to protect what's ours. The confrontation at Horizon gas station was over. The true battle was just beginning. Martin drove with the steady confidence of someone who knew every back road in the region. They avoided the main highways, taking winding routes that meandered through the desert landscape. No one spoke for the first 20 minutes, the tension of their narrow escape still hanging in the air. Finally, Rebecca broke the silence. We should be safe for now. I doubt even the Lamberts would attempt anything in broad daylight. Don't underestimate them, Martin replied, checking the rearview mirror for the third time in as many minutes. I've watched that family operate for decades. They didn't build their defense contracting empire by playing fair. Maya sat in the back seat, her mind racing to process everything that had happened. Just yesterday, she had been a nurse and single mother with a normal life, reluctantly dealing with an unwanted inheritance. Now she was fleeing from one of the most powerful families in the defense sector, carrying evidence of classified security. Breaches and government cover-ups. Where are we going? She asked suddenly, realizing she had no idea where Martin was taking them. My cabin, the older man answered. About an hour from here, just over the state line in Arizona. Daniel's influence doesn't extend quite as far there. We'll be safe enough to regroup and plan our next steps. Maya looked down at the documents clutched in her hands. I still don't understand how my uncle connected with you both. The way my mother talked about him, she made it sound like he was becoming paranoid, isolated. Rebecca turned in her seat to face her. That's what the Lamberts wanted everyone to believe. Your uncle's reputation was systematically undermined over years' subtle rumors, convenient incidents, professional isolation. By the time he approached me with his evidence, most of his former colleagues already thought he was just a bitter old veteran with conspiracy theories. But he found you, Maya said. A journalist willing to listen, Rebecca nodded. I was investigating defense contract irregularities, looking to make my mark with something bigger than Pentagon press releases. Frank approached me carefully, shared just enough to pique my interest without revealing his full hand. It took months before he trusted me with access to his complete documentation. And you? Maya asked Martin. How did you get involved? The older man's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. I handled your uncle's legal affairs for years. I was there when he first discovered the discrepancy in the nuclear protocols inventory, when he realized what General Lambert had done. Frank came to me when he first suspected that someone was monitoring his communications. Martin paused, glancing at Maya in the rearview mirror. I helped him file Freedom of Information requests, seek whistleblower protections, all perfectly legitimate. But when Daniel Lambert realized what Frank was doing, the pressure started. First, subtle clients mysteriously taking their business elsewhere. Then, not so subtle, my senior partners called me in and told me the firm would no longer represent Frank Collins. But you kept helping him anyway, Maya guessed. Unofficially. By then, I'd seen enough evidence to believe him. What happened to him wasn't right. They drove in silence for several more minutes, each lost in their own thoughts. The landscape gradually changed from flat desert to more rugged rocky terrain. Martin turned onto an unmarked dirt road that wound upward into the foothills. "There's something I still don't understand," Maya said finally. "If my uncle had all this evidence, why didn't he go public with it years ago? Why hide everything in a secret bunker?" Rebecca exchanged a glance with Martin. "He tried initially approached a Pentagon inspector general, not me. This was before my time. The complaint was buried. Then he tried the Senate Armed Services Committee. Suddenly, all his appointments were canceled. The FBI Counterintelligence Division sent an agent who spent 15 minutes interviewing him and declared his concerns unfounded without examining a single document. The Lamberts blocked him at every turn," Martin added. "And then they started playing hardball. Your mother's apartment was broken into, nothing taken, just left in disarray. A message. Your mother's academic career hit unexpected obstacles overnight. The bank suddenly called in loans on her car. The pieces fell into place in Maya's mind. So my mother didn't leave because she thought Uncle Frank was crazy. She left because the Lamberts were threatening us. Your mother wanted to take Frank with you," Martin said gently. "But he refused to leave. Said someone had to stay and gather evidence, build a case no one could ignore or suppress. He believed if he left, the Lamberts would win permanently." The dirt road ended at a modest cabin nestled among pinyon pines, simple but well-maintained, with a covered porch and a small detached garage. Martin parked and led them inside, checking carefully before unlocking the door. The interior was cozy, a main room with a stone fireplace, small kitchen area, and doors leading to what Maya presumed were bedrooms. One wall was covered with bookshelves, another featured maps of the Southwest. "We should be safe here for now," Martin said, securing the door behind them. "No one associates this place with me. It's owned through a family trust under my wife's maiden name." Rebecca immediately set up her laptop on the dining table. "We need to catalog what we have and get it secured online. How much did you manage to grab from the bunker?" she asked Maya. She carefully removed the documents from inside her jacket. "Not everything, but the most critical materials, the verification codes, the inventory log showing the removal, my uncle's documentation of the threats against my mother." "Good," Rebecca nodded. "Between what you have there and the recording I made of Lambert's conversation, we should have enough to start building our case." "Case for what, exactly?" Maya asked. "What's our actual plan here?" Rebecca and Martin exchanged another look. "That depends partly on you," Martin said carefully. "How involved you want to be. This isn't your fight, Maya. Your uncle spent decades on this crusade. It cost him his freedom, nearly his sanity. No one would blame you for handing over the evidence and walking away." The suggestion was tempting. Maya could picture it, giving everything to Rebecca and Martin, returning to her orderly life in Phoenix, to Zoe, leaving the Lamberts and their crimes in more experienced hands. It would be the sensible choice. But then she thought of her uncle, isolated and discredited, eventually forced into a VA hospital on false pretenses. She thought of her mother, living in fear for 15 years, always looking over her shoulder. She thought of the precious relationship with her uncle that had been stolen from her by the Lamberts' threats and intimidation. "It became my fight the moment I found that key," Maya said firmly. "Tell me what we need to do." Relief showed on both their faces. First, we build a bulletproof case, Rebecca said, typing rapidly on her laptop. The Lamberts will have expensive lawyers who will try to discredit everything. We need irrefutable evidence, witnesses willing to come forward, verification that the protocols are actually what your uncle claimed they were. Witnesses? After 30 years, and with the Lamberts' influence in national security circles? Maya questioned. There are people who've remained silent out of fear, not loyalty, Martin explained. Former military communications specialists who worked with your uncle. Pentagon officials who were aware of the missing protocols but were pressured to keep quiet. VA staff who observed Frank's sudden diagnosis. Getting them to speak won't be easy, Rebecca acknowledged. But seeing someone finally standing up to the Lamberts might embolden others. Maya considered this, and verification of the protocols. That's trickier, Martin admitted. We'd need someone with current security clearance to confirm they're authentic without actually compromising them further. I might have a solution for that, Rebecca said, looking up from her computer. I have a contact at the Senate Intelligence Committee, someone who could view the documents in a secure setting, verify their authenticity without making the contents public. Here's what we're dealing with, Martin explained, spreading his hands on the table. The evidence you recovered gives us a strong foundation, but the Lamberts will claim it's all fabricated by a man with delusions. We need corroboration from multiple sources. And we need protection, Rebecca added grimly. Once we start moving on this, the Lamberts won't limit themselves to legal channels. They've invested too much in covering this up for too long. A chill ran through Maya as the true danger of their situation sank in. Protection from who? The local authorities won't help if the Lamberts have the influence you describe. I have contacts at the federal level, Rebecca said. People outside the Lamberts' sphere of influence. But they'll need something solid before they'll act. Political figures don't stick their necks out based on historical allegations alone. So we're back to needing current evidence, Maya mused. She thought for a moment, her nurse's mind analyzing the problem methodically. What about other personnel from the Nevada test site? People who worked with my uncle. Would they know about the missing protocols? Rebecca's expression brightened. That's actually brilliant. The Lamberts have been focused on keeping Frank isolated, discredited. But there would have been others who noticed the discrepancy in the inventory, even if they didn't know the full significance. Maya felt a spark of hope ignite within her. My uncle must have records of everyone who worked in his division, right? We could reach out to former colleagues, find people who might corroborate his claims. It could work, Rebecca agreed, typing notes. But we'd need to move quickly before the Lamberts realize what we're doing. Martin looked troubled. Daniel Lambert has already seen us together. He knows we have some of Frank's evidence. We might have less time than we think. As if in answer to his concern, Rebecca's phone buzzed with an incoming message. Her expression darkened as she read it. What is it? Maya asked. My editor at the bureau. Lambert Industries representatives just showed up at our offices with a cease and desist letter threatening a national security violation lawsuit if any classified information obtained through unauthorized channels is published. She looked up grimly. They're moving faster than I expected. And that's just the official response, Martin said. I guarantee they're taking other actions we can't see yet. Maya felt a new determination hardening within her. Then we need to move faster too. My uncle spent years gathering evidence while the Lamberts blocked him at every turn. We don't have that luxury. What are you suggesting? Rebecca asked. A different approach, Maya said, thinking quickly. Instead of trying to build a perfect case before going public, what if we use strategic exposure to force the issue? Release enough evidence to attract attention from authorities outside Lambert influence, while holding back our strongest proof, to counter their inevitable denials. Rebecca considered this. Risky. We'd be showing our hand early. But we'd be controlling the narrative, Maya argued. Right now, they're assuming we'll follow the same playbook my uncle did. Careful. Evidence gathering, official channels, systems they know how to manipulate. They won't expect us to go straight to the public. It could work, Martin said slowly, especially if we focus on the cover-up rather than the classified details of the protocols themselves. That creates immediate pressure for official action, without compromising national security. Rebecca nodded, warming to the idea. I have contacts at major news outlets, government accountability groups. We could orchestrate a coordinated release, enough different sources that the Lamberts couldn't silence them all. For the first time since discovering the hidden bunker that morning, Maya felt like they might actually have a chance. The Lamberts had spent decades perfecting their system of influence and intimidation, but they'd never faced the kind of immediate, widespread exposure that modern media could create. How quickly can we move? She asked. Give me 24 hours to organize the media contacts, Rebecca said. Martin, can you reach out to your connections at the VA? See if anyone remembers Frank's case? The older man nodded. And I'll start preparing legal frameworks for whistleblower protections once this becomes public. They worked late into the evening, organizing documents, creating digital backups, and developing their strategy. As night fell, Martin showed Maya to a small bedroom where she could rest. Alone for the first time since the confrontation with Lambert, Maya sat on the edge of the bed, exhaustion washing over her. The events of the day seemed almost unreal: the hidden bunker, the nuclear protocols, the revelation about her uncle's confinement, the narrow escape. She took out her phone, seeing several missed calls from her regular life colleagues wondering about her return, her ex-husband checking on her progress with the inheritance. That existence suddenly seemed distant, as if it belonged to someone else. On impulse, Maya dialed her mother's number. It was time she knew what had been discovered about Frank, about the true reason they had fled all those years ago, and about the fight that now lay ahead. As the phone rang, she thought about the Horizon gas station, not as the burden she had initially considered it, but as the repository of truth her uncle had created, a legacy more valuable than land or buildings. The call connected, and Maya took a deep breath. Mom, there's something I need to tell you about Uncle Frank's gas station. Behind the cabin, deep in the surrounding woods, a man in tactical gear watched through high-powered binoculars. He spoke quietly into a secure radio, confirmed location. 3 subjects isolated property, awaiting instructions. The battle for truth had begun, but so had the Lamberts' counterattack. The next 24 hours would determine whether justice would finally come to those responsible, or whether powerful interests would once again bury the truth beneath layers of influence and intimidation. Dawn broke over Martin's cabin with deceptive serenity that belied the tension within. Maya had slept fitfully, her conversation with her mother replaying in her mind. Her initial shock had given way to years of misunderstanding her uncle's motives, washed away by the truth, followed by a determination to help that had surprised Maya. Her mother was already making arrangements to join them, bringing additional documentation she'd secretly preserved from their hasty departure 15 years ago. Be careful, Maya, her mother had warned before hanging up. These people have been getting away with this for decades. They won't stop now. Morning brought focused activity. Rebecca had been up before dawn, coordinating with contacts at major news outlets. Martin worked the phone, speaking in careful, coded language to former colleagues who might be sympathetic to their cause. Maya focused on organizing her uncle's documents, creating a chronology that showed the pattern of intimidation, cover-up, and isolation. We have interest from 2 national security reporters, Rebecca announced, joining Maya at the dining table where she'd spread out her work. They want documentation of the cover-up and, if possible, statements from other personnel who worked at the Nevada test site during that period. And verification of the protocols? Maya asked. My contact at the Senate Intelligence Committee has agreed to view them in a secure setting, Rebecca replied. No details would be published, just confirmation that they match what was reported missing in 1988. What about other witnesses? Maya asked Martin as the older man ended his latest call. 2 former VA doctors remember your uncle's case, Martin replied. They were suspicious of the sudden PTSD diagnosis, but were overruled by the chief of psychiatry, who, coincidentally, received a substantial research grant from a Lambert family foundation the following year. Maya tapped a document in front of her. According to Uncle Frank's records, there were 3 other communications specialists in his division who would have had access to the inventory records. If they're still alive, they might corroborate his story. I'll search for them, Rebecca said, typing rapidly on her laptop. Military records, veterans associations, social media, someone will know where to find them. We need to move quickly, Martin reminded them, glancing at his watch. Lambert has had almost 24 hours to mobilize his resources. As if to emphasize his point, Rebecca's phone buzzed with an alert. Her expression tightened as she read the screen. Lambert Industries just announced an emergency press conference for noon today, she said. Topic: addressing malicious falsehoods regarding historical security protocols. Martin's face darkened. They're getting out ahead of us, trying to control the narrative. Then we accelerate our timeline, Maya decided, a newfound authority in her voice that surprised even her. Rebecca, how quickly can your media contacts move with what we have now? By evening news cycle. But it would be stronger with additional corroboration. Maya thought for a moment, weighing options against time constraints. My mother will be here by early afternoon with her documents. That gives us a second source. If we can locate even one of my uncle's former colleagues before Lambert's press conference, we'd have enough to create reasonable doubt about whatever story they're planning to spin. Rebecca nodded, already focusing on her laptop. I'll prioritize finding the communications team members. They worked with renewed urgency, the clock ticking toward Lambert's noon press conference. Around 10, Rebecca let out a triumphant sound. I found one Edward Merrick. He was a senior communications specialist at the Nevada test site. From 1985 to 1992, worked directly with your uncle. He's retired, living just 3 hours from here in Sedona. Can you reach him? Maya asked. Hope rising. Rebecca was already dialing. I'm trying his home phone now. The tension built as the phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then, hello? Rebecca expertly introduced herself, explaining that she was investigating historical security protocols. At the Nevada test site, at the mention of Frank Collins, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. Frank Collins, the voice finally said, cautious but with an undercurrent of emotion. Haven't heard that name in years. They did him wrong, you know, very wrong. Maya's heart leapt. Rebecca caught her eye with a triumphant glance before continuing the conversation, explaining that Frank's niece was now trying to clear his name. Would you be willing to meet with us today, Mr. Merrick? It's rather urgent. Another pause. Lambert's people came around yesterday. First time in 20 years. Asking if anyone had contacted me about Frank. Told them no, but they'll be watching. We understand the risk, Rebecca assured him. But this might be the only chance to set the record straight about what happened to Frank. He was a good man, Merrick said, resolve strengthening in his voice. Fine. There's a cafe in West Sedona called Red Rock Coffee, noon. I'll be in the bat booth. But just one of you, less conspicuous. After the call ended, they debated who should go. Maya immediately volunteered. It should be me. I'm his niece. He'll trust family. It's too dangerous, Martin objected. Lambert knows your face now. That's precisely why it should be me, Maya countered. They'll be watching for Rebecca, maybe even you. But they'll expect me to be hiding, not driving straight to Sedona to meet a potential witness. In the end, They agreed that Maya would meet Merrick while Rebecca prepared their media package, and Martin met Maya's mother at the airport. They would reconvene at the cabin by late afternoon, hopefully with enough evidence to counter whatever narrative Lambert presented at his press conference. As Maya prepared to leave, Rebecca handed her a small device. Wireless recorder. Completely secure. Transmits to an encrypted cloud server only I can access. Whatever Merrick tells you, we'll have it preserved regardless of what happens next. The gravity of that regardless hung in the air between them. They all understood the stakes now that the Lamberts wouldn't limit themselves to legal challenges if their legacy was truly threatened. "Be careful," Rebecca said, embracing Maya briefly. "No unnecessary risks. If anything seems wrong at the meeting, just leave. We'll find another way." "Your daughter needs you to come home," Martin added quietly, the simple truth landing with profound impact. Maya nodded, thinking of Zoe, of the life that had seemed so ordinary just 2 days ago. "I'll be careful. But I'm going to finish what my uncle started." The drive to Sedona took just under 3 hours, giving Maya time to process everything that had happened and prepare for the meeting with Merrick. She rehearsed questions, considered angles, tried to anticipate what information would be most valuable. Red Rock Coffee was a small establishment tucked away from Sedona's main tourist areas, popular with locals rather than visitors. Maya arrived 20 minutes early, parking where she could observe the entrance while remaining inconspicuous. She watched carefully as people came and went, looking for anyone who might be surveillance. At 5 minutes to noon, seeing nothing suspicious, she entered the cafe. The interior was warm and inviting, with southwestern decor and the rich aroma of fresh coffee. As instructed, Maya made her way to the back booth where an elderly man sat alone, his weathered hands wrapped around a ceramic mug. "Mr. Merrick?" she asked quietly, sliding into the seat across from him. He studied her face intently, then nodded once. "You have his eyes, Frank's eyes." The simple observation touched something deep in Maya. "You knew my uncle well?" 7 years side by side in the communications center. Frank was the best of us, meticulous, principled. When things didn't add up, he was the one who'd keep digging until he found the answer. Merrick's gaze turned distant with memory. That's what got him in trouble in the end. "The missing protocols," Maya prompted gently. Merrick glanced around before continuing in a lower voice. "It wasn't supposed to be Frank who found them. He was covering my shift that weekend. I had my daughter's wedding. Otherwise, it would have been me doing the quarterly inventory." "What exactly did he find?" "Discrepancies in the nuclear emergency response protocols, the master contingency plans. Items that should have been in secure storage but weren't. Access logs that had been altered." Merrick leaned closer. "At first, we all just thought it was clerical error, but Frank kept pulling threads." "And he traced it to General Lambert?" Merrick nodded grimly. "Not right away. Took months of careful work. Lambert had been careful, used others to do the actual removal. But Frank found a pattern in the access logs, cross-referenced with Lambert's known locations. He tapped his temple. Frank had a mind like a steel trap. Never forgot details. Why didn't anyone believe him when he reported it?" A bitter smile crossed the old man's face. "Who says nobody believed him? Plenty of us knew he was right. But Lambert was Deputy Director of Strategic Command, practically untouchable. Had allies throughout the Pentagon, friends in Congress. When Frank filed his report, it went straight to one of Lambert's people. By the time he realized that, they'd already started their campaign against him. The claims of mental instability," Maya said. "Classic intelligence community tactic," Merrick confirmed. "Discredit the messenger. Started with small things, suggestions that Frank was under stress, working too hard. Then came the performance reviews questioning his judgment. Finally, the security clearance review that labeled him a risk." "Did you try to help him?" Shame crossed Merrick's features. Not enough, none of us did. We were scared for our jobs, our families. Lambert made examples of the few who spoke up. One colleague who supported Frank's claims was investigated for mishandling classified information, a complete fabrication, but it destroyed his career. After that, he spread his hands in a helpless gesture. So everyone abandoned him, to my eternal regret. Merrick reached into his jacket and withdrew an envelope. I can't go back and change what I did then, but I can help now. He slid the envelope across the table. My personal logs from that period. I kept my own records, separate from the official system. Never told anyone, not even Frank. They document the inventory discrepancies, the pattern of access, Lambert's presence, on key dates. Most importantly, they show the systematic campaign against Frank after he reported the missing protocols. Maya took the envelope with trembling hands. Why now, after all these years? Merrick's eyes, clouded with cataracts but still sharp with intelligence, fixed on hers. I'm 82 years old, Miss Collins. I've lived with this guilt for 3 decades. Before I die, I want to set one thing right. He leaned forward. Frank Collins was a patriot who tried to protect his country from within. For that, they destroyed him. That's not the America I served. As Maya carefully secured the envelope in her jacket, Merrick suddenly stiffened, his gaze moving past her to the cafe entrance. Don't turn around, he muttered. Man in the gray suit by the door. He's Lambert's security. Maya felt her heart rate spike. Are you sure? Worked intelligence for 40 years. I know surveillance when I see it. Merrick's voice remained calm despite the warning. There's a back exit through the kitchen. The owner's an old friend. When I signal, you go through that door. He nodded toward a swinging door behind the counter. I'll create a distraction. What about you? The old man smiled thinly. I'm just a confused veteran having coffee. You're the one with evidence in your pocket. Before Maya could protest, Merrick stood suddenly, his coffee mug crashing to the floor. Disgraceful, he shouted, drawing every eye in the cafe. Charging $5 for a refill. Highway robbery. As the staff rushed to calm him and clean the spill, Maya slipped behind the counter and through the kitchen door. A startled cook looked up from a grill. Ed Merrick sent me, she said quickly. Need the back exit. Understanding flashed across the cook's face. He jerked his thumb toward a metal door. Straight through. Comes out in the alley. Maya hurried through, emerging into a narrow passage between buildings. She moved quickly to the end of the alley, checking carefully before stepping onto a side street parallel to the main road where she'd parked. Circling around the block, Maya approached her car from the opposite direction, scanning for anyone. Watching it. Seeing no one, she slipped inside and started the engine, pulling away as casually as possible. In her rearview mirror, she saw a man in a gray suit emerge from the cafe, speaking urgently into a phone. He hadn't seen her, but the narrow escape underscored the resources the Lamberts were willing to deploy. Maya checked the time just after 1 p.m. Lambert's press conference would be over. She turned on the radio, scanning for news stations. Lambert industry spokesperson forcefully denied allegations of historical security breaches, characterizing them as the discredited claims of a mentally unstable former employee, now being exploited by sensation-seeking journalists. Daniel Lambert, the company's CEO, expressed regret that his father, the late General Warren Lambert, was being smeared after a lifetime of distinguished service. The Pentagon has declined to comment, citing the classified nature of the alleged protocols. Maya switched off the radio, her resolve hardening. Lambert was following the expected playbook: denial, character assassination, appeals to patriotism. But this time, the strategy wouldn't work. This time they had evidence from multiple sources, including the documentation she now carried from Edward Merrick. She pulled over at a rest stop to call Rebecca, using a secure line they'd established. "I've got Merrick's personal logs," she reported. And he confirmed everything: the protocols, Lambert's involvement, the campaign against Uncle Frank. "That's excellent," Rebecca responded, excitement evident in her voice. Lambert's press conference was weak, all denial, no substance. With Merrick's documentation added to what we already have, we can move forward with the media release tonight. What about the Senate intelligence contact? Meeting him at 4. If he confirms the protocols are authentic, we'll have official verification without compromising classified information. And my mother? Martin picked her up an hour ago. They should be at the cabin soon. She's brought everything she saved from your uncle's correspondence. Apparently she kept more than she ever told you. Relief washed through Maya. The pieces were falling into place. I'm heading back now. Should be there by 4. Be careful, Rebecca cautioned. If they found Merrick, they might be looking for you on the highways. Maya assured her she would take precautions, then ended the call. As she pulled back onto the highway, she felt something she hadn't experienced since finding the hidden bunker hope. Real hope that her uncle's reputation might be restored, that the truth about the Lamberts would finally emerge, that justice might actually be possible. The desert landscape rolled past her windows, stark and beautiful in the afternoon sun. Somewhere in the vast expanse between Sedona and Martin's cabin, Maya Collins, nurse, single mother, reluctant inheritor of a gas station, found herself transformed. The woman who had arrived at the Horizon gas station, believing she was simply clearing out an old building, was gone. In her place was someone stronger, more determined, someone who understood that some inheritances came with responsibilities that transcended property and possessions. Her phone rang, displaying Martin's number. Maya answered using the car's Bluetooth. "How far out are you?" Martin asked without preamble, his voice tense. "About an hour and a half." "Why? Is something wrong?" There was a pause that sent a chill through her. "Your mother and I arrived at the cabin 20 minutes ago. It's been searched thoroughly, professionally. Rebecca's laptop is gone, along with all the physical documents we left behind." Maya's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Was Rebecca there? Is she okay? She's fine. She took the protocols to her Senate contact and wasn't here during the break-in. But Maya, his voice dropped. They left something behind. A photograph of Zoe at school. Today's date stamped on the back. The implication hit Maya like a physical blow. The Lamberts had found her daughter. "I've already called your ex-husband," Martin continued quickly. "He's picking her up from school immediately, taking her to his parents' cabin in the mountains. No digital footprint, completely off-grid. She'd be safe." Maya fought to control her breathing, to push back the wave of panic threatening to overwhelm her. "They're threatening my child," she said, her voice eerily calm despite the rage building inside her. "They're threatening my 10-year-old daughter." "Maya, listen to me," Martin said urgently. "This is what they do. They target families when they can't silence the primary threat. It's psychological warfare. But they won't actually harm her. That would create exactly the kind of attention they're trying to avoid." She knew he was right, logically. But maternal instinct wasn't logical. It was primal, fierce, uncompromising. "Change of plans," Maya said, her decision crystallizing with absolute clarity. "I'm not coming to the cabin. The Lamberts have shown. They know where to find us, and they're willing to target my daughter. We need to take this to the next level." "What are you thinking?" Martin asked cautiously. "Lambert wants to make this personal? Fine. I'm going to the source. I'm driving to Las Vegas." "Vegas? Why?" Understanding dawned in Martin's voice. "The Lambert Industries headquarters." "Maya, that's incredibly dangerous." "It's the last thing they'll expect," she countered. "They think we're hiding, regrouping after their countermove. Instead, I'm going to walk straight into Daniel Lambert's office with everything we have. He'll have you arrested." Not if I'm standing in his lobby with Merrick's logs and a live stream to every major news outlet. Not if I've just come from meeting with a Senate Intelligence Committee member who's verified the protocols are genuine. Not if my mother is simultaneously giving a press conference with what she preserved from Uncle Frank's records. There was a long silence as Martin processed her strategy. "It's risky," he finally said, "but it might be brilliant. The Lamberts are used to operating in the shadows, using proxies and plausible deniability. A direct public confrontation is the one scenario they've never had to manage." "Exactly," Maya said, her course now set. "Tell Rebecca to meet me in Vegas after her Senate meeting. And Mom needs to be ready to speak publicly. Lambert needs to know that silencing me won't end this." "What about Merrick's documentation?" "I'm making a digital copy at the next town. The original stay with me and my insurance policy when I walk into Lambert headquarters." As she ended the call, Maya realized how far she'd come from the woman who had reluctantly driven to an inherited gas station just 2 days earlier. The Lamberts had made a critical miscalculation. By threatening Zoe, they had transformed Maya's quest for justice into something more powerful, a mother's determination to create a world where powerful men couldn't threaten children with impunity. The hidden bunker beneath the Horizon gas station had changed everything. And now, as Maya accelerated toward Las Vegas and a confrontation decades in the making, she understood that some secrets couldn't remain buried forever, not when their exposure was the only path to true security. For the next generation, Las Vegas appeared on the horizon, its skyline shimmering in the desert heat. Maya had spent the 3-hour drive strategizing, making calls, and mentally preparing for the confrontation ahead. At a small-town copy shop, she had created digital backups of Merrick's logs, sending encrypted files to Rebecca, Martin, and several secure locations only she could access. Lambert Industries headquarters dominated the north end of the Las Vegas Strip, a 40-story glass tower crowned with the company's distinctive blue and silver logo. What had begun as a modest defense contracting firm under General Warren Lambert had expanded into a multinational corporation with divisions in cybersecurity, aerospace, and intelligence technology. Maya parked in a public garage 2 blocks away, taking a moment to center herself before what came next. She checked her phone. A message from her ex-husband confirmed that Zoe was safe at his parents' remote cabin, completely off the grid. Rebecca had successfully met with her Senate contact, who verified the protocols matched descriptions of those reported missing in 1988. Her mother was positioned with Martin, ready to launch their media response if anything happened to Maya. All the pieces were in place. It was time. She straightened her clothes, simple, professional attire she'd purchased at a department store en route. The transformation wasn't just external. The woman walking confidently toward Lambert Industries bore little resemblance to the reluctant inheritor who had arrived at the Horizon gas station just 3 days earlier. The Lambert Industries lobby was a monument to corporate success and military connections. Glass and steel architecture complemented by displays of military aircraft models and photographs of company executives with presidents and Pentagon officials. At the center stood a bronze statue of General Warren Lambert in full dress uniform, his expression stern and commanding. Maya approached the security desk, where 2 guards monitored visitors through the busy lobby. "I'd like to see Daniel Lambert, please." The guard looked up, professionally detached. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but he'll want to see me." She met his gaze steadily. "Please tell him Maya Collins is here, Frank Collins' niece." A flicker of recognition crossed the guard's face. He picked up a phone, speaking quietly while maintaining eye contact with Maya. After a brief conversation, he hung up. "Someone will be down to escort you shortly." Maya nodded, stepping back from the desk but remaining visible in the center of the lobby. From her shoulder bag, she withdrew a tablet and set up a small tripod on a nearby bench. The security guard watched with growing concern as she connected the device to a portable hotspot. Ma'am, recording isn't permitted in this building. I'm not recording yet, Maya replied calmly. This is just insurance. Before the guard could respond, elevator doors opened, and a woman in her early 40s emerged, accompanied by two men in suits who were clearly security rather than executives. Miss Collins, the woman greeted her with professional courtesy. I'm Catherine Vance, Mr. Lambert's chief of staff. He's requested that I meet with you regarding your concerns. That's not going to work, Maya said, loud enough for others in the lobby to hear. My concern is that Daniel Lambert's family stole classified nuclear protocols, then destroyed my uncle's life when he tried to report it. I didn't come to speak with staff. The woman's pleasant expression tightened. This isn't an appropriate venue for such discussions. It's the only venue left after Mr. Lambert's people threatened my daughter this morning. Maya held up her tablet, now displaying a ready-to-activate livestream connection to 3 major news outlets. Either I speak with Daniel Lambert directly, or this conversation continues with a national audience. Catherine's eyes darted to the tablet, then back to Maya's face, calculating the public relations disaster unfolding in their lobby. After a tense moment, she spoke quietly into her earpiece, listened briefly, then nodded. Mr. Lambert will see you. But the recording equipment stays here. The tablet comes with me, Maya countered. It stays off unless your security tries to confiscate Merrick's logs or my uncle's evidence. The name Merrick visibly registered with Catherine, who reassessed the situation before reluctantly agreeing. Follow me. The executive elevator whisked them to the 40th floor in seconds. Maya emerged into a reception area decorated with the restrained opulence of serious money original artwork, custom furniture, panoramic views of the Las Vegas Strip and the desert beyond. Through glass doors, Maya could see Daniel Lambert, standing at a floor-to-ceiling window, his back to the entrance, seemingly contemplating the empire his family had built. Catherine led her through, then discreetly withdrew, leaving the security personnel positioned outside the closed doors. Miss Collins, Lambert said without turning. This is an extraordinarily reckless approach to negotiation. I'm not here to negotiate, Maya replied. Negotiation implies both parties have something the other wants. I just want the truth publicly acknowledged. Lambert turned slowly to face her. In the controlled environment of his office, he appeared even more formidable than he had at the gas station, power and authority evident in every aspect of his bearing. Truth is rarely the simple concept idealists believe it to be. He gestured toward a seating area. Please sit. Whatever you may think of me, I'm not in the habit of threatening women who visit my office. Maya remained standing. You threatened my daughter. Something flickered across Lambert's face, perhaps surprise, perhaps irritation at subordinates' tactics. If someone left a photograph at your colleague's location, that was overzealous security personnel acting without authorization. I've been in board meetings all morning. Plausible deniability, Maya observed coldly, the Lambert family specialty. Lambert studied her for a long moment, then moved to a sideboard where he poured 2 glasses of water, offering one to Maya, which she declined. You have your uncle's directness, he remarked, setting down the rejected glass. Frank never did understand the nuances of institutional politics either. Is that what you call destroying an innocent man's career and reputation? Institutional politics, Lambert sighed. The performance of a reasonable man dealing with an unreasonable situation. Your uncle discovered something he didn't fully understand, made assumptions based on incomplete information, and refused to follow proper channels when his concerns were addressed through appropriate oversight. That's not what Edward Merrick's logs show, Maya said, noting Lambert's minute reaction to the name. His contemporaneous records document every step of my uncle's proper reporting and your father's systematic campaign to discredit him. For the first time, Lambert's composure wavered. Merrick reached out to you? That's unexpected. People's consciences catch up with them eventually, Maya said. He documented everything, the inventory discrepancies, your father's presence. On key dates, the coordinated effort to question my uncle's mental stability after he filed his report. Lambert moved behind his desk, a subtle shifting of the power dynamic. Ms. Collins, whatever you think you know, you're operating without context. The late 1980s were a precarious time in global security. Certain contingency measures had to be implemented that couldn't appear in the official record. Save the national security speech, Maya interrupted. Rebecca Chun's Senate Intelligence Committee contact has already verified the protocols are exactly what my uncle claimed they were, fail-safe override codes that were removed without authorization. This visibly rattled Lambert. The Senate committee is involved now. That's highly irregular protocol for classified. The only irregular protocol is the one your father stole, Maya cut in. The one that's been missing from secure storage for 30 years. The one that could potentially compromise nuclear safeguards if it fell into the wrong hands. Lambert's expression hardened. You're making accusations without understanding the complex security environment of the Cold War's final years. My father was acting on direct, albeit unofficial, orders to secure backup protocols in case of Soviet penetration of the Pentagon systems. If that were true, Maya countered, there would be a record of authorization. There would have been no need to discredit my uncle. There would have been no threats against my mother that forced us to flee in the middle of the night. She stepped closer to the desk. No, this was personal insurance leverage your father created for himself and passed down to you. Protection against political rivals, career insurance during Pentagon power struggles. Lambert's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. You have an interesting theory based on the paranoid records of a discredited communications specialist and the vague recollections of an elderly former colleague. It would hardly stand up to scrutiny. That's why I also have my mother's preserved correspondence with my uncle. Documentation of the threats she received. Records of the systematic harassment that followed her even after we moved. Maya allowed herself a small satisfied smile. And most importantly, we have the Senate verification that the protocols exist and match what was reported missing. For several long moments, Lambert was silent, reassessing the situation with the calculated precision that had made him a formidable corporate leader. What exactly do you want? He finally asked. Public acknowledgement of what happened to my uncle. Formal Pentagon recognition that he reported a genuine security breach and was wrongfully discredited. Financial restitution for his lost career and damaged reputation. Maya's voice remained steady. And a public apology from Lambert Industries for its role in suppressing the truth. Lambert actually laughed a short, incredulous sound. You can't be serious. You're asking me to dismantle my father's legacy, devalue my company's stock, and potentially trigger federal investigations into historical security protocols that are still classified. I'm asking you to acknowledge the truth, Maya corrected him. Something your family has avoided for 30 years. At what cost? Lambert spread his hands, indicating the view of Las Vegas, the implied empire beyond. Do you understand what you're threatening to destroy? Lambert Industries employs over 20,000 people. We have defense contracts that protect this nation. All to settle a decades-old grievance? Justice isn't a grievance, Maya said quietly. My uncle spent the last years of his life heavily medicated in a VA hospital because he tried to do the right thing. My mother lived in fear for 15 years. I grew up without half my family because your father put his ambition above national security. Lambert moved to the window again, his reflection in the glass showing a man performing complex calculations behind a carefully maintained facade of confidence. I could have you removed from this building, he said eventually. I could have your evidence confiscated as classified material. I could bury you in litigation so deep you'd never see daylight. You could try, Maya agreed. But my mother is currently waiting with a team of reporters. Rebecca Chun has copies of everything, as does Martin Weaver. Edward Merrick is prepared to testify. The moment anything happens to me, it all goes public in ways you can't control. She lifted her tablet. Including this conversation, which is being recorded and uploaded to secure servers in real time. Lambert turned to face her, reassessing Maya Collins with new eyes, no longer seeing the reluctant inheritor of a gas station, but a formidable opponent who had outmaneuvered him. I need time to consult with my board, with legal counsel. You have until 6 p.m., Maya said, checking her watch. 3 hours. After that, Rebecca Chun publishes everything we have, and the Senate Intelligence Committee holds an emergency session to address the missing protocols. Lambert's expression tightened with barely controlled anger. You're making a mistake forcing this timeline. Some things require diplomatic handling. Diplomacy had 30 years, Maya replied. My uncle didn't get the luxury of time, neither do you. As Maya turned to leave, Lambert called after her. Your uncle was naive, Miss Collins. He believed systems work according to their stated principles. They don't. They work according to power and influence. That's reality. Maya paused at the door. No, Mr. Lambert, that's corruption. And it only persists when good people are too afraid to challenge it. She met his gaze steadily. My uncle wasn't afraid. Neither am I. As she walked out through the executive suite, past Catherine Vance's surprised expression and the security personnel who had clearly expected a much longer meeting, Maya felt a strange calm settle over her. For the first time since discovering the hidden bunker, she wasn't running or reacting, she was directing the course of events. In the lobby, she found Rebecca waiting, having arrived directly from her Senate meeting. How did it go? Rebecca asked as they exited the building together. He has until 6 p.m. to decide between an orderly acknowledgement of the truth or a very public exposure. Maya checked her phone. Mom and Martin are standing by with the media contacts. Merrick has agreed to go on record if needed. Rebecca looked impressed. You've managed to do in 3 days what your uncle couldn't accomplish in years back, Lambert, into a corner he can't escape. The difference is leverage, Maya said as they walked toward her car. Uncle Frank was isolated, vulnerable. We've created a network of evidence and witnesses that's too robust to dismantle quickly. As they drove away from Lambert Industries headquarters, Maya felt the weight of the past 3 days, the discoveries, confrontations, narrow escapes, and strategic maneuvers. What had begun as a reluctant weekend trip to clear out an inherited gas station had transformed into a mission to restore her uncle's reputation and expose a decades-long cover-up. What happens now? Rebecca asked as they headed toward the secure hotel where Martin and Maya's mother were waiting. Now we prepare for either outcome, Maya replied. Either Lambert recognizes his position is untenable and negotiates terms for the truth to emerge, or we release everything we have and let the public and political consequences unfold. The next 3 hours passed in focused preparation. Maya reunited with her mother, an emotional meeting, where years of misunderstanding dissolved in the shared purpose of vindicating Frank Collins. Together with Martin and Rebecca, they finalized their evidence package, prepared statements, and established secure communications with media outlets and Senate staff. At 5:55 p.m., Maya's phone rang Lambert Industries' main number. Miss Collins, Catherine Vance's voice came through, professionally detached. Mr. Lambert has asked me to inform you that our legal team has prepared a proposed framework for resolving the matters we discussed. A secure email with the details has been sent to Ms. Chun's verified address. Maya exchanged glances with Rebecca, who was already checking her laptop. She opened the email, quickly scanning its contents before giving Maya a subtle nod of approval. The terms are acceptable as a starting point, Maya told Catherine. But we'll need direct acknowledgement. From Mr. Lambert himself. He anticipated that request, Catherine replied smoothly. He's prepared to make a statement at tomorrow morning's scheduled press conference, with appropriate representatives from the Senate Intelligence Committee present. After ending the call, Maya sat heavily on the hotel room sofa, the adrenaline that had sustained her finally beginning to ebb. He's capitulating, Rebecca said, sounding almost surprised. Full acknowledgement of the protocol's removal, recognition of Frank's proper reporting, financial settlement, and formal restoration of his service record. Lambert's no fool, Martin observed. He recognized that fighting this would cost more than conceding. This way, he controls the narrative positions his father's actions as misguided patriotism rather than self-serving power politics. Will it be enough? Maya's mother asked quietly. After everything Frank suffered? Maya thought about her uncle, the brilliant, principled man whose career and reputation had been systematically destroyed because he refused to look the other way when he discovered a security breach. The man who had spent decades meticulously documenting the truth while powerful forces worked to bury it. It's not perfect justice, Maya acknowledged. Lambert still gets to craft the public story. But Uncle Frank's name will be cleared. The truth about the protocols will be officially recognized. And most importantly, the people who did this won't be able to hide behind government secrecy and corporate power anymore. Later that evening, as the others continued preparations for the next day's press conference, Maya stepped onto the hotel balcony, gazing out at the Las Vegas skyline glittering against the desert night. She called her ex-husband for an update on Zoe, relieved to hear their daughter was safe and happily enjoying what she thought was a surprise vacation at her grandparents' cabin. When the call ended, Maya remained on the balcony, reflecting on the extraordinary journey that had begun with a reluctant drive to an inherited gas station just 3 days earlier. The hidden bunker beneath the Horizon station had changed everything, not just by revealing her uncle's secret archive of evidence, but by setting in motion a sequence of events that had transformed Maya herself. The woman who had arrived at the gas station focused on her orderly life, anxious to dispose of an unwanted inheritance, disconnected from her family's past, was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, more determined, someone who understood that justice sometimes required ordinary people to take extraordinary stands against powerful interests. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Breaking news, Pentagon sources confirming tomorrow's announcement about historical security protocols. We've won. Maya smiled, picturing her uncle as she remembered him from childhood, intelligent, eyes twinkling as he taught her to count the stars from the gas station's roof. He had never given up on the truth, even when it cost him everything. That persistence, that uncompromising integrity, had finally prevailed. 3 months later, Maya stood on the newly renovated forecourt of the Horizon gas station, watching as workers installed the commemorative plaque. What had once been a dilapidated inheritance had transformed into a mission, and now a memorial. The aftermath of Lambert's public acknowledgement had unfolded rapidly. The Senate Intelligence Committee had launched a comprehensive review of historical security protocols. Daniel Lambert had resigned as CEO of Lambert Industries amid shareholder concerns, though the company continued operations under new leadership. The Pentagon had formally restored Frank Collins' service record and reputation, acknowledging his exemplary conduct in reporting security discrepancies at significant personal cost. The financial settlement had been substantial enough to not only renovate the Horizon gas station, but to establish a whistleblower support foundation in Frank Collins' name. Most meaningfully for Maya, her uncle's medical records had been amended to remove the false PTSD diagnosis, replacing it with an acknowledgement of the psychological impact of career-ending retaliation. "It looks good," Rebecca said, joining Maya on the forecourt. The journalist had parlayed her role in exposing the Lambert cover-up into a prestigious investigative position, focusing on government accountability. Uncle Frank would be pleased. Maya agreed, reading the plaque's inscription: Frank Collins, Communications Specialist, Nevada Test Site 1947-2023. Truth persists long after those who fear it are gone. Martin and Maya's mother approached from the main building, which had been transformed into a small museum documenting the history of nuclear security, protocols, and the importance of government transparency. The first school group is booked for next week, her mother reported, the years of fear and regret replaced by purposeful energy. She had become the museum's primary guide, finally able to share her brother's story openly. And the interview requests keep coming, Martin added. Your uncle's case has become a textbook example for whistleblower protection reforms. Maya nodded, gazing across the desert landscape surrounding the horizon. In the distance, a tour bus approached, the first of many that would bring visitors to learn about Frank Collins and the hidden bunker that had changed history. Edward Merrick had been right when he'd told her that her uncle was a patriot who had tried to protect his country from within. The systems meant to safeguard national security had failed Frank Collins, but his meticulous documentation, preserved in that secret underground archive, had ultimately prevailed against even the most powerful adversaries. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the renovated gas station, Maya reflected on how a reluctant inheritance had become her most meaningful possession. The horizon wasn't just a piece of property, it was a testament to the enduring power of truth and the responsibility each generation has to confront injustice, no matter how deeply buried. Inside the main building, now a bright, modern museum space, visitors would soon learn about nuclear protocols, government accountability, and one man's solitary stand against corruption. But they would also learn something more fundamental: that ordinary people, when armed with truth and unwilling to be silenced, can challenge even the most entrenched power structures. Maya's phone buzzed with a message from her daughter's school. Zoe had been selected to represent her class at a regional science fair. The ordinary concerns of parenthood and career continued alongside her new role as custodian of her uncle's legacy. Life had found a new equilibrium. Maya had returned to nursing part-time, balancing her professional responsibilities with overseeing the Horizon Memorial and Foundation. Her relationship with her mother had deepened through their shared purpose, healing wounds that had festered for 15 years of separation and misunderstanding. Ms. Collins, a young National Park Service representative approached, clipboard in hand. We're ready to discuss the Horizon's designation as a National Historic Site whenever you're available. Maya nodded, scheduling a meeting for the following week. The significance of what had happened here, both the original security breach and its eventual exposure, had drawn attention far beyond what she had anticipated. The hidden bunker, carefully preserved exactly as Frank had maintained it, would soon be officially recognized for its historical importance. As the workers finished mounting the commemorative plaque, Maya ran her fingers over her uncle's name, remembering the brass key that had started it all, the key that had unlocked not just a hidden room but decades of suppressed truth. He never gave up, her mother said softly, standing beside her. Even when everyone, including me, told him to let it go, to protect himself, he kept believing that eventually, the truth would matter more than power. It did, Maya confirmed, watching as the setting sun illuminated the desert in brilliant gold, just not on their timeline. Later, as twilight descended and the workers departed, Maya walked alone to the spot behind the service garage where the entrance to the underground bunker remained, now secured with museum-quality preservation protocols rather than the hidden trapdoor of the past. Standing there, she thought about inheritance in its fullest sense, not just the physical property that had initially seemed like a burden, but the moral legacy her uncle had entrusted to her. Frank Collins had believed that some truths were worth protecting, even at tremendous personal cost. That legacy of integrity had passed to Maya, transforming her in ways she never could have anticipated when she first turned the key in the Horizon gas station's lock. The desert night enveloped the property in peaceful darkness, stars emerging in brilliant clarity overhead, the same stars she had counted with her uncle as a child. The Horizon gas station stood as testament to one man's courage and one woman's determination to finish what he had started. Maya Collins had arrived at an inherited gas station, expecting to close a chapter of family history. Instead, she had found herself writing a new one, a story of hidden archives, buried secrets, and the enduring power of truth to eventually overcome even the most formidable obstacles. The underground tank that had revealed the Pentagon's missing nuclear protocols had changed everything, not just for the Collins family, but for the systems of accountability and transparency that protected the nation's most sensitive security interests. As Maya turned to leave, she cast one final glance at the renovated Horizon, silhouetted against the star-filled sky. What had once been her most reluctant inheritance had become her most meaningful legacy, a reminder that sometimes the most important discoveries lie beneath the surface, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover them. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.